This is Parenting Today with Paul Royer. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in California. Tonight we're going to talk about talking to your children and adolescents about substance use. This is a very difficult subject for many parents because we tend to look backwards and really pay a lot of attention to how our parents dealt with these delicate issues. Oftentimes we grew up in homes where parents were involved in their own substance use, or they spend absolutely no time talking with us about these challenges that our teenagers have to face. As parents today, we have to empower ourselves to be more proactive, to have numerous discussions with our children about the substances that are available and around them. The most important thing for us as parents to understand is that being able to have an open dialogue with our children about what they are exposed to is the most important piece to the puzzle. First thing that we have to consider is, as parents, what are our typical patterns of alcohol and drug use? If you are a parent who tends to drink excessively, then the first thing you need to do in dealing with your children is confront that issue. If your children observe you overusing alcohol, then that will normalize it for them. As parents, we need to teach our children either abstinence or moderation, whichever is the value system within the family. As we try to open a dialogue with our children, they are already going to know that we've been using alcohol and hopefully using it in a, dare I say, positive way. As parents, if you've made mistakes with alcohol, it's okay for you to take ownership of that because your children have already observed that alcohol has been an issue. There's no hiding things from children and adolescents. They are constantly observing our behavior, and if we make mistakes and over-imbibe, then it's important to acknowledge that and take ownership of it so that our children don't see us as hypocrites. In discussing alcohol use, the first question that we have to ask our teenagers is to what extent are they observing their peer group being involved in substance use? There's a natural curiosity that is created with all teenagers. They're interested in things that make them look cool, that make them look accepted by their peer group. As children move through middle school and into adolescence, they'll be increasingly exposed to wanting to fit in. Oftentimes, children and teenagers are not wanting to just use substances, they're just wanting to be part of the group. Even if our children have strong egos and are desiring to try to stay away from alcohol throughout middle school, as they move into high school, there'll be an increased curiosity, an increased social exposure to alcohol use. As parents, we need to get on the front end of this. We need to not just tell our children to not drink, but we also need to talk to them about what they're seeing and how alcohol is affecting their peers. This is the best way not only to help our children understand how to set limits on themselves, but to also open a dialogue with our children about what's going on so that they're able to see us as competent, trustful adults who are there to guide and mentor them and not just controlling people who are trying to tell them what to do. The same is for marijuana use in the culture today. This is very, very difficult as more and more states are legalizing marijuana both for medical and recreational use. There are many parents who are involved in marijuana use. This creates a significant conflict in the relationship with the child, as you are often telling them to not do something that you may actually be doing yourself or at least be interested in doing. As parents, we need to be aware that our children are already exposed on a high level to the realities of marijuana use. Many children will go on the internet and get what they observe to be factual information about how marijuana has affected people. What we need to understand about marijuana use is that the studies have not been done that give us clear information on how marijuana affects the growing, developing mind of a teenager. There are some studies that are showing us some initial ideas, but we as parents need to continue to hold on to the idea that marijuana use for the growing, developing teenage brain is not indicated. So we need to encourage our children to not be involved in this type of behavior because we don't truly understand its immediate and long-term impact. It's not okay for us as parents just to say, well, you know, it's legal in this state or that state, so I'm just going to let my kids smoke pot. We as the parents must be the ones who are sitting there setting the standards and creating the safe environment. Just because we don't permit our children to smoke marijuana, this does not mean that they're not going to be interested or they may wish to be involved in this. Once again, we go back to creating an open communication style with our children, not just about what we think that they should be doing, but what they're observing in their peer groups and their own social structure. We have to remember that that is the goal of adolescence, to separate ourselves from the parent group and start to establish our own identity. If we as parents are overly controlling and rigid, our children will feel the need to rebel from us and do the opposite of what we want. If our teenagers view us as being someone who is trustworthy and understandable, yet also there to help us maintain safety and structure, then they will be able to come to us and seek us out so that they can get guidance and support when they are confronting very difficult social issues. The next significant area of concern is prescription drug use. As there is more accessibility to prescriptions both from doctors and through other family members, teenagers are much more able to access prescription pills. It is very, very difficult for a vulnerable teenager who is out there at a party who may be wanting to feel cool or to fit in to not partake in something that is a pill that may have been prescribed by a doctor. Many teenagers are easily seduced into thinking that that makes these pills non-harmful. It's very important for us as parents to open a dialogue with our children about the immediate and long-term effects of substances, whether these are opiate-based narcotics, or whether these are muscle relaxants, or whether these are anti-anxiety medications. Taking these substances, particularly if in conjunction with alcohol, can have a profound negative impact on the child's nervous system and cause significant consequences. For us as parents, we must have a dialogue with our children about the potential effects of these situations. As our kids are being more social and taking more time to be with their peers, there's an increased possibility that they will be exposed to prescription drug use. Also of significant concern is the use of stimulants. This can be in the form of prescription drugs such as Ritalin, Adderall, or others, but also in the use of amphetamines. These substances are used by young adults to try to increase their awareness and increase the intensity of their social situation. Oftentimes the teenagers do not have a complete understanding of the physiological impacts of these substances. By taking a stimulant, they are markedly increasing their heart rate and their ability to perceive situations around them. This can be extremely difficult for them, particularly if they're using alcohol as a depressant, which may also have a very negative impact on their physical makeup. For us as parents, we do need to talk to our children about how just because Adderall, Vyvanse, Ritalin, and other substances are prescribed by a doctor, that they can be both lethal and addictive. There are other substances that I do want to give quick attention to. particularly if your child is wanting to go out to rave parties or to clubs. There are numerous new designer drugs called club drugs which are available. What was the originator was ecstasy, or MDMA, or Molly as is referred to by teens and partiers. If the child is being sucked into this identity of wanting to be a partier or a clubber or a raver, then this needs to be of significant concern to us as parents, because that is their identity. Once the child assumes this identity, whether it's the raver or whether it's the stoner or whether it's the boozer, then that means that they're going to try to meet all of the social expectations created around that. For us as parents, we need to be acutely aware of our child's identity so that we're able to help them navigate the choices that they have to make when they're out there in their social situation. It would be fantastic if we could all make our children safe all the time. That's just not real or practical. It's our job as parents to teach our children how to make better choices when they are out there without us. So hopefully we've learned tonight that our job as parents is to truly open a dialogue. We need to be very clear about boundaries, expectations, and consequences, but you cannot just be overly rigid with your child and try to control all of their behaviors. Our job as parents of adolescents is to teach them how to control themselves. So even though we need to be clear about consequences, we also have to balance that out with a clear, open dialogue about our child's experiences and the choices that they have to make. Hopefully this was helpful, and you'll continue to come back and see further videos.